Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of our conversation around why Black Lives Matter. Our topic today will be an extension and a continuation of our discussion from last week. And I think the bigger reason was that we introduced Morgan quite late in the conversation. So we'd like to continue that introduction. Also, Morgan's experience is also going to give us a nice view of the two sides of the education system, in that she's been part of an all-black school and an all-white school. So just that sense of belongingness and acceptance, and just kind of being home. So one of the things so our topic today is around claiming our home, but it's not specific to the education system. It's specific to in relation to, and I think we expanded our topic last week around including people of color more than just Black people. So it is about being home and claiming our home. And so we're going to just have a free conversation around what that means to us, feel into the energy of belonging and acceptance, and just enjoy the conversation. So thank you for joining us. Please feel free to share your thoughts, experiences, insights into our topic today. And I'm going to turn it over to Morgan, because I think we left off with her sharing her story last week. So we'll continue from there.
Thank you, Granville. So yeah, one of the things that I was talking about last week was kind of my childhood and how I did attend all white schools from elementary to middle school and to high school. And I believe one of the things that I mentioned was that my parents wanted me to go there to have a better education. Just being that the Black communities, or where I was in Detroit, they didn't really have the best school system. And that's been generationally since even my parents were my age and younger. So my parents moved us out of Detroit into the suburb area of Michigan, so that me and my brother could really have more of a chance in life. And generally, there is a lot of crime that happens in low poverty areas such as Detroit. And it's not all parts of Detroit, but my point is that my parents just wanted us to have more opportunities. And it just seems as if, the white schools do actually offer more quality education, even just the environment within itself is better, because that does affect you as a person when you're a child, especially growing up, because you tend to take on your environment and you become a product of your environment. And so that was kind of the main gist of why my parents made that decision for me and my brother. And so it was a very good thing for me. I don't knock my parents for making that decision. I actually really appreciate it a lot. However, I did feel like while I was there was racism, not so much as it was maybe for my grandparents' generation, but it just seemed to be that the white kids there, in comparison to me and my brother and my peers that were Black that were there, we kind of got treated like second-class citizens, even as kids. With being in the white schools, they do put their white kids first, and the Black kids are kind of just we all kind of migrated together, actually. And with that, I did have a lot of friends that were white, but I always had an upset because most of them lived in big homes. Most of them hadn't really gone through the struggles that I had when I was a kid before we moved to the suburb area. So it was kind of, just as a kid, a little upsetting to see that they were just quote unquote so privileged in comparison to like me and my peers. So as I got older, in high school, by then I had really adjusted to the school system and I was fine with it. But I did always just feel like this little hole inside of my heart where I couldn't fully be myself. I did join the cheerleading team in high school, and I remember being like the only Black girl besides maybe one or two of us. And that was very kind of challenging in one aspect or another, because you're in school and you're looking around and like no one really looks like you. And so it's just very kind of hard to even find your identity in that. And so that was one issue that I did run into. But educationally, I do feel very good about that. As far as even now, it affects me today, having had a good education. But I know like some of my peers that stayed in the um, Black schools didn't end up so well for them. And like I said, that's because of your environment. It's because of your education. And it matters when you want to move further in your life and you don't feel like you have the skill sets or even, like I said, the opportunities to just do well as an adult and as you're coming into your adulthood rather. So going forward in college, I did go to a white university my freshman year. And I mentioned last week that I remember seeing my peers that came from the Black schools, and they really, struggled a lot. A lot of them didn't speak well, meaning that in the predominant Black areas, there's a much more of a slang talk. And, when you're going into finding a job and like just basically living life, it's kind of important to have a certain demeanor for as professionalism. And so they also lack that as a simple life skill. And that's something that I feel like I gained from going to the predominantly white schools. Um, I also mentioned last week how my parents named me and my brother well, my name is Morgan. His name is Garrett, who's after a Black inventor, actually. But the reason that they named me that was because my mom didn't want me to have like a quote unquote Black girl name, um, because she wanted me to have a chance. She wanted me to not be judged on my name and things like that, as far as going into the corporate America world. So I do understand why, her thinking in that. Um, but as far as going to the Black schools, once I finished that first year of my college career, I kind of just made a new choice. I was kind of tired of feeling small. And I think I was 18 at the time. And so I decided to go to school in a predominantly Black area. And it was probably the best decision I've ever made, because once I went there, I gained friends like super quick. People that were there, they were like me, wanting an education too. And it was kind of this thought that like Black people don't want an education, don't want to do well in life. But when I actually went there, it was actually the complete opposite. A lot of the people that I was around wanted the same things that I wanted. And I actually really, really enjoyed myself. I felt like I could be myself. And excuse me, I found myself really more so than I feel like if I had stayed at a white university, as I didn't really have friends there. It was very hard for me to just kind of get involved even. But with going to the Black schools, there was opportunities there for us as Black students that the university had put in place because of the demographic there. So it kind of gave me a new mindset that like we do actually have these opportunities. We do actually have um, ways that we can advance ourselves and also be around our own people, our own culture. It is possible. I had just grown up with the mindset being around white people from elementary, middle to high school, that wasn't necessarily the case. And so now that I am in graduate school, I'm around even more people that look like me and that have careers that are successful and want to have that quality education. Um, because it is very important, I personally feel like, in life, to have an education on some level or another, not just saying going to school, but some kind of knowledge base as far as a career and getting into life purpose and things like that. But I'm happy that I made that decision, and it has grown me as a person. And just going to a historically Black college now, like I said, I'm around a lot of professionals, talking about my professors even that are at where I want to be at, later down the road in life. And so it's just nice to see that the corporate America, quote unquote, is not just all white people. And that's something that my parents kind of told me and gave me that belief. And I see differently as now that I'm an adult. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I want to actually just ask you a question. So you said at some point you actually made a new decision. You made the decision to do the shift. So what prompted that decision for you?
Well, this is one thing I could mention about that. I actually, the university I went to, the first one, it was very expensive. Um, and so I didn't actually have the money to go back there to continue. So I ended up transferring, going to another university that was a lot cheaper. That was kind of the reasoning for that. And at first I was really upset that I couldn't go back there, but I just feel like that kind of happened for a reason. And God kind of guided me where he wanted me to be. So that was one of the reasons, but more so, I did really desire to be around Black people. It was just this thing where I just felt so small and lost, being around, going to predominantly white university. And it was just hard for me to make friends. And I really wanted to enjoy my college experience. I didn't want to just, you know, walk around campus and get stared at all the time.
And so if you feel into that feeling now, is there any residue related to that feeling of smallness or the potential lack of belonging?
Yes.
Okay, so you want to just take a deep breath and just allow yourself to observe that feeling. And just find that part of you that's carrying that feeling. What does she need right now that will allow her to peacefully and easily release that feeling?
Yeah, she just needs love.
So do you want to go ahead and love her up there? And so as you love her up, is there anything else coming up?
Yeah, she was scared.
What was she afraid of?
I think she was scared of maybe something was going to happen to her.
And in truth, can anything really happen to her?
No.
Because where does a safety and a protection and a security come from?
God.
Right. And so can you allow her just to realize that? And just to accept that that's where her safety and security and protection come from. And how does she feel now?
Good.
Does it feel complete, or is there something more?
Yeah, this scared feeling kind of felt like she was unsafe.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
But in divine truth, she's always safe, right?
Yes.
And so you can allow that divine truth to just completely settle in. There's no reason to resist it. And how's she feeling now?
Protected.
Awesome. Is there anything else that she needs in this place?
Herself.
Yeah, give her as much love as she wants. It's like love is there in abundance, and there's no reason to look for it because it's just there. So she can just absorb as much of it as she wants. She can allow herself to be greedy about all the love that she wants to absorb. How does that feel?
Very good.
Awesome. Does it feel complete, or is there more?
It feels complete.
Awesome. Do you want to just welcome all of that in and just seal it in love?
Yes.
Good. Thank you for sharing that with us. So who has the next piece here?
I do.
Awesome.
I loved what you shared, Morgan, and the healing you just did. That was really, really cool. And your story like really illustrates the power of choice. You made the choice like to really honor yourself even more. You also like by going to the white schools, you made the choice to honor your education, even though like the system is broken, obviously, and you know, poverty exists a lot in the Black community. You made the choice like to, you know, get out of that and shift that for consciousness. So, and then you got out of that like feeling of not like belonging and found your home, and you continue to claim your home by honoring yourself and choosing your education. So yeah, I think that's like perfect example of like the power of your choice and how to claim your heaven on earth, claim your home. And like as we were talking about this, like it reminded me of how, you know, there's like a big wage gap between men and women of color, and like the white man's dollar is like I think Black women make like 50 cents to the white man's dollar, or like 60. I think I don't know the exact numbers on that, but when I saw that recently, I realized like now that we have this work, now that we have like know our life purpose, or we're working on our life purpose, that like inequality is being eliminated because we're being our own bosses. We're letting God be like our economy, our system, our bank, you know. Doreen says it's 63 cents, more or less. Yeah. So yeah, like that's something that was just like really nice to realize, like we're eliminating like that inequality in the workplace by creating our own, you know, living our life purpose. And that feels really, really good.
So it's quite interesting that you mentioned that, because wasn't there like a big movement around equal pay for work of equal value at some point? Because I know that in South Africa, that is definitely a policy in our employment law that people receive equal pay for work of equal value, regardless of race, gender, any of those potential discriminatory categories that can be used are all part of legislative protection. And so the biggest drive is for equal pay for work of equal value. So I'm just wondering, because a few years ago, wasn't that kind of like a similar movement in the US?
It was gaining a lot more, like people were realizing it a lot more. Sorry, am I echoing?
No.
Okay. Okay. Just a little bit. Do you mind if you mute yourself or like turn down the volume? It's a little distracting. Are we good?
Yeah, everybody's muted except you and I.
Well, does anyone else hear that echo?
Yeah, Granville, I think that your computer's echoing a bit.
Really?
Really?
Oh, sorry, Nick. Sorry, I can't hear an echo, and I'm also not technical enough to tell you that I can quickly solve the challenge here.
You just need to mute yourself.
Don't hear an echo.
You just need to mute yourself.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Well, okay. Anyways, there was some like traction happening in the US around equal pay. Like a lot of that stuff happened around like the Me Too movement, I think. Like Hollywood was like shining a light on like the equal pay disparages, or that word. And I remember them talking about that a lot at award shows and stuff, but I don't think there's any legislative like action that's been taken in the US. I know there's like there are equal rights legislation like in our government, but like there's nothing that is about like equal pay. So it's still happening. And actually it was like equal pay day a couple days ago, like last week. But yeah, that's something we're still working on.
Yeah, and also I'd like to add to that too, it's mainly like just people of color don't get hired. So it's not even like they have to then take a lower valued job or a lower paying job when they were just as valuable as the job that they would have taken that would be been proper. So that's kind of like the loophole that's been happening, right? Is that like a guy who has credentials up the butt to be the CEO of a company is having to be the VP of sales of the company instead of the CEO. Sure, cool, he's making money, but like he's not making the salary of his equative education experience because of his color. And it's the same thing for women, obviously, and also the LGBTQ community and things like that too. But yeah, that's what's happening in the US.
I don't know how we got on this part. How do we get on this part, right? But I have an upset here. And so I have this, I've been having like salary increase conversations with my boss, right? And I was like, I am going to ask for this increase before like the grant monies that we're getting comes. And like the whole meeting went rogue, right? It didn't go rogue, but it did not go as I had planned. And the feeling that I had afterwards, after the meeting, was this tension of like what I wanted and what he felt conservative to ask for. So it was basically grant monies, going for grant monies for a nonprofit. And I just want to be clear that the salary that I want to make, that we ask for that amount plus some. And the tension that I got was like, I felt invalued in what I was requesting it for. And I was like, I'm going to go get this money. So it's not even like I'm asking you to come out your pocket. And it was this weird tension that did not feel good. And thankfully, I got to talk to my brother afterwards, who kind of gave me a little bit of context of maybe like how my boss was feeling. But it didn't feel good. And what really motivated me, and what I really wish I had the quick wit to say in the meeting with him, and I'll eventually say it probably, is like, I'm not interested in being in the gender racial equity gap salary bucket. Like, I'm not interested in being a person whose income represents a racial economic equity gap, or a person who represents a gender economic equity gap. And so if there's opportunity to seek money and get funding to not be a part of that, like, that's what I want. And like, let's not have a conversation about that. And let's do that. And so that was really kind of the motivation. And it was just this weird tension that didn't feel good. And I felt I had to like really claim my space there. And I'm really on a tip, like, if there's a Black woman that works for anybody, pay them like an extra $20,000, period. Like, that's like what I want to say and what I want to do. So anyways, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, what's the feeling that's coming up for you here?
Yeah, it was a feeling of feeling invalued. And putting me in a box.
Yeah, do you see that place where you're invaluing yourself and putting yourself in a box?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It caused me to, sorry.
Oh, you're fine, go ahead.
Yeah, it caused me to approach the meeting with the funder differently because of like that experience, because I mirrored the heck out of it afterwards, right? Mm-hmm. And but yeah, it was I am valuable and I am supported, and God's got me. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you need in this space to feel loved?
No, I was just reminded that I get to trust God and not man, is what I was reminded of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, as you were speaking, there was kind of this energy that I was feeling, just some like defensiveness. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I felt like I had to like defend what I was like bringing to the table. It was very not cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is that true? Do you have to defend yourself in that way?
I don't.
No, you just have to honor yourself and choose to respect yourself.
Yeah.
How are you feeling now?
I feel much better. Like, that's a good reassurance. The call went well, and yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Are you feeling complete here?
I do.
Wonderful. So the card that we have is trust. You have a strong connection to your soul's loving voice and have faith in your intuition. So really trust that you are absolutely valuable, and what you ask for, you can have. Everything that you desire, you can receive.
So good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good work.
I wanted to say something like that came up as I'm hearing everybody's stories. Like, I feel like there's like this misaligned belief that under the surface that we kind of feel, and this is like the root of why all this stuff happens, is like that like some person is your source instead of like God being your source. And I mean, like, it would make sense that there's something generational because of, you know, having, you know, white slave owners and slaves, and that, you know, the person who's your slave owner is like your source is the reason why you are alive, essentially, right? Like, there, like, I feel like there is something in regards to like that thought process that's been created, because I like look at Morgan's story of how it was like the white person or the white school is the source of good education, or the job, like you have, like, it just feels like this misaligned belief, I guess. And so yeah, I just want to invite more dialogue based around like just claiming God's source, claiming your power, and like yeah, I don't know what that looks like for a solution for all people, except just to do that.
Mostly claiming your power.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was kind of
So
like,
I think what
some like,
oh.
So just to
Sorry.
add to what Ray said, just I think it's an energy of worthiness and deservingness that kind of also needs to be settled in. Because if you are worthy and deserving, your source is not outside of yourself. Your source has made you worthy and deserving of all your good.
That's it.
You're echoing again.
What were you saying?
Oh, just like, because, I don't know, claiming your power. Something along the lines of that. I forget.
Yeah. No, it's perfect. Yeah.
I was just saying I was listening to like some song and like, I don't know, they always bring that up, like about claiming your power, like just going out and getting what you desire.
Yeah. You know, though, like I will say,
they just like go do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't wait and like think someone else is their source.
Yeah.
Because behind it all, obviously they know that God's their source. Like
right
underneath it all is what I was saying. So yeah.
So I also hi again, right? I also this morning watched, I don't know if you guys have watched this show, the movie, it's in the 90s, it's called Coming to America, and the African prince, and he goes to Eddie Murphy, right? And so you know, they did like a secondary movie of that, right, 30 years later, and it was on Amazon Prime. And it is besides one person, I think it's an all Black cast, which is so awesome, because I didn't even realize it until the end of the movie, where there's like, they're all dancing at the end of the movie. And I'm like looking in the crowd and I'm like, oh wait, there were no white people in this movie. Like, it was like the first time I had ever watched a movie there where it didn't like make that click in my head, which was cool. And the thing I wanted to say about that was like, it was really interesting. It's always interesting to watch these specific movie, the one that was made in the 90s and the one that was made now, because like they have this like prince who's super rich and royal, and the way that they experience life is so different, right? And it has a lot to do with like what Granville said, like it's like a worthiness thing, right? So they don't claim to see anyone as their source, right? And then like when you go to America and you see this, in the movie, in the beginning of the movie, his son, you know, is in a job interview, and white guys like, you know, saying stuff to him about like, oh, so like, was your mom on drugs? Like, how did she lose her job? Like, you know, whatever. Just like things that were like extremely racist and stuff like that. And like, he couldn't even get a job. And this guy's like, you know, the prince, right, of whatever. And like in the first movie, like it was like a big deal for him to get a job at McDowell's, which is like the McDonald's of the movie, right? And so like I just was thinking about it, I'm like, damn, like the consciousness of a country is so so contrasting. And so it was like really, really interesting to like watch that this morning and just kind of like understand that and to see that on a new level, because it's not something that I've ever had to experience. And so yeah, the movie was really great. Like if you haven't seen it, go watch it. And yeah, it brought up some of that stuff.
Yeah, I think the blog that you presented, like the core of it, it often it often manifests as you know, in a world, like in a country where white guys are at the head of institutions and it's made for white people, you kind of had to earn your place, I guess, up to them. And so you're giving your power away to kind of fit in and be deserving instead of knowing that you're deserving because you have a source. Yeah, I guess that's what I took out from what you said, basically.
So basically, like, yeah, because I just like wonder about this too, because we talk about America a lot in our conversations. And
Yeah.
so I just like wonder, you know, is it just because America has that history and, you know, we're just racist, you know, or is this like a global thing? And like, you know, like what is the conscious, is there a consciousness anywhere in any country where this is healed? Or is this kind of everywhere you go, this is the consciousness?
No.
So yeah, that was my kind of thought.
I think Marty touched on this, and it's a global thing, not because like everyone follows the same patterns, but because like this isn't healed in consciousness. So basically, like I grew up in the French Caribbean, so families mixed, like all the society is mixed, and everyone can have equal opportunities to succeed. And so I grew up with that, and then I came to continental Europe when I was 18, and like the first thing that my mom said when I settled in my apartment is like be careful, you're Black, like you're gonna have to work and be careful about what you say and how you present, and don't forget that you're Black. So basically, even though I had equal opportunities until I was 18 and I had a pretty good school, there was still this consciousness about domination of white people. And so for me, like it translated into being in a school with very few people of color. And like in theory, France is supposed to, we're not based out on communities. We don't really work like that. So in theory, it's equal opportunities and deservingness by work for everyone. But like I was in an environment where people wanted to communicate that I didn't have my place here, like through behavior, through grades, like through maybe manipulation. And it really like settled in that people tried to do that when the same year that I quit, like a lot of people that quit as well or were pushed out were women of color. So yeah, I guess like, yeah, we had all the opportunities, and I mean, it was awesome in terms of education, but like it was the consciousness or illusion that we didn't deserve as much as like white heterosexual men, like that we are not the norm for success, I guess. So yeah, for me it's worldwide, even though it doesn't manifest in the same way.
Yeah, so I have to agree with you that it's a much more global thing to heal in consciousness, because again, as you said, like, you know, even though the equal opportunities happen, there's still that sense of people are pushed because of their color, because we have to equal the playing field, but they're not necessarily deserving. So it plays out in silly things like people being excluded from conversations in certain places, or that inner circle crap, or that white boys club, or shit like that. I've experienced it in corporate as well, where even sometimes where people were smokers, certain business decisions were taken in the smoke room. And because other people don't smoke, they weren't included in those conversations. Or otherwise it was walk with me down the corridor and somebody comes back and some decision has been made. So, you know, those strange nuances that it plays out in, like on paper, you can say there's equal opportunity. But at the core of it, it kind of has to be the culture of something. There has to be the cultural change inside an organization. There has to be the cultural change inside a country. There probably has to be a level of global cultural change where people are not seen as less than others.
Like ultimately, that's what I thought like first. It's that sense of like people that are a different complexion as you are seen as others, are seen as strangers. And ultimately, that's what we have to heal. And so that it is not like the normative structure of our countries, basically. Because like even though people have different cultures, what I've realized from like moving and traveling is that in some part of the society, everyone is like trying to put people in boxes, and oftentimes color is one of these boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's fueled by the sense of otherness. So I've also traveled quite a bit, and like for me, European seems to be a lot more accepting, but then I don't live there all the time. I'm also a foreigner visiting the country, spending money. So it puts me in a very different space to a local living in the country, feeling everything. And then like Asia, those places also, the otherness is always a strong thing. And then you now find that it's not even otherness based on specific color now. It's otherness based on the types of food you eat or your religious practices or things like that. And one of the things that I had a conversation with Anupama about was like just the otherness, even within cultures. Like fairer skinned Indian people would be a lot less accepting of darker skinned Indian people. So, you know, it's those kind of weird things that's just fueled purely in your different. So that means I have to almost put up a barrier in this place. Because again, I think it's about acceptance. It's not that your place is lost because somebody else is there. Why the hell can't you share the place? You don't need the whole space. And just because you're letting somebody into that space doesn't mean you lose anything. You might actually freaking gain something.
Granville, one thing I wanted to mention is also age. I believe it's a factor too. That I've personally experienced working with different companies and working in the HR department. of those companies and feeling like not only am I the youngest one here, I'm the one of color, the only one of color and the youngest. And so it's just like the elephant in the room that everyone kind of reminds you of that without saying it. And so it's probably the most uncomfortable feeling. You feel so vulnerable and helpless. And it's like an isolated feeling as well. And I believe that's in the workplace as a whole, with millennials coming into the workplaces now. A lot of the older generations that are getting ready to kind of retire out are not fully accepting of like our age group per se, and the coming age group. So age is definitely a factor too.
I wanted to kind of like throw this out there as well, because what you guys both had brought up, like there's these differences and things like that. And, I was thinking about, well, how do you have a relationship with someone? Like, how do you build a relationship with someone? And I think of the world of how we think to relate to someone is how to have a relationship with someone is to relate to someone. So like you're like, oh, we went to the same college. Cool. I can have a relationship with you. Like you're always trying to find a similarity. And if there's no similarity there, that's easy off the top. And what's the thing? Like everything is based off of like, the first seeing in order to interact into a relationship, right? And so you take visual cues to create, okay, how am I relating to this person? And then going from there to create the relationship, instead of what I think is of the unionist perspective and is relating, but a seeing of the other person's divinity, and a level of intimacy where you're getting to know someone, and you're allowing that space and time to get to know someone because you know yourself really well. And so it's like not based off of this kind of like, let me find the people who are similar to me and those are my friends. Instead it's seeing, I guess, seeing the oneness of all people, seeing the divinity in all people, and allowing that to be what creates friendship. Because like even like with Morgan, what she was saying was like, even in her white school, like she ended up spending a lot of time with the Black kids in the school. And I think that like that's very common, like even in cities that you would think are very diverse. Look at Los Angeles, for example. And in those cities, you got Koreatown, or you got this, specific city where like all of the specific cultural, people will stay together and not, not mix. And so I feel like there's something to that, as to like, how do we have relationships with people, and not having relationships based off of like relating to someone, but on simply, seeing the divinity in someone. And I think we're learning. I think we're like unlearning social construct with social media and other things like that, because we know so much more about a person when we first meet them because of social media, that I think that like it's like breaking down and restructuring of how we create relationships in the world. So just throwing that out there, and I don't know if anybody has any insights or.
Yes, I think you touched on quite an important point, and the thing that you're talking to is snap unconscious and value judgments, really, because and it's a psychological concept that you will make a value judgment based on something that you see, regardless of whether it has meaning or not. It's kind of the stuff around unconscious bias and implicit bias and all those other things. But then the next step is you actually make a value judgment so that you actually stop yourself from going past the bias. So it's literally like you're saying, I will only relate to you when I perceive a sense of similarity in one way or another. So for instance, and I know I've done it in the past, like I don't like people that breathe heavily. It just sounds weird. So of course, immediately it's something that's like, whoa. And yet, you know what? They might just breathe more deeply than me. And that's the thing about snap and value judgments. You don't actually realize that those things are happening. That is why it is very important to kind of be self-aware. It's kind of important to go look in the mirror and go, well, actually, what is it specifically that I'm not liking here? Because one, it's probably identifying something in you that you would need to heal. And two, again, you might just find a gem in that same snap judgment that you made. And that is what you're speaking to around looking beyond to the divinity of a person. Because if we did do that, and it became our conscious way of relating to people, we would not have to work at it as much as we do. And we do. Purely because we've been socialized in certain ways, we've grown up in certain ways, we've experienced certain things that have actually become barriers, walls, boundaries, doesn't matter what it is. The fact of the matter is it's creating a separation, which is what we're trying to heal. But it's literally snap judgments. Like if I see somebody with 10 different colors of hair, I'm like, you might be a little bit of an airhead. I might not want to be your friend. But what if this person is super expressive and they help me to unlock a level of creativity in myself? Because everybody is not expressive at the same level. It goes to the thing you were talking about around intimacy. Everybody is not comfortable to be intimate at the same level. But the fact of the matter is when you do bother to pay attention, you actually find value. You always find value. And sometimes the value is even just to say, this is not good for me. I'm going to put up a boundary here. There's still value.
That's it. People don't know how to do boundaries.
If you don't look.
The boundaries thing, I think, is the thing that people don't know how to do. And that's the whole thing. Like, you can't be go more intimately with a person if you don't have solid boundaries. Like, this is something that Jeff's been talking a lot about in classes with us. And like, otherwise you're just like kind of diving into a vast ocean, not knowing where you're going, right? But like, yeah, it's like really important to know yourself and to have those boundaries in place so that when you do go deeper with someone, you are able to say, yeah, this isn't for me or whatever, but doing it based off of you went there instead of like judging it and not going there, right? Because then you never go deeper in your life or experience more or get to know yourself deeper.
Exactly. And you know what? One of the things that always strikes me is that it doesn't matter who I'm talking to. There is always something to learn. So every day is a school day for me. And sometimes the learning is just, I don't want to walk on that side of the road. I don't want to walk next to you on that side of the road. But I learned that. And if I hadn't had the conversation, I wouldn't have learned.
So basically, claiming our space in society is also about being vulnerable and bold, I guess. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Yeah, it was good to see that, like, us in our relationships is what is going to be the way to empower each other and each like find our space on earth. also just like we each have a space here in this discussion. Because like, if you think about it, we're all coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, so it's kind of leading the way into healing relationships and relating to each other.
Finding union in relationships, right? And that's the whole point of the Church of Union, and even, you know, all the teachings of Jeff and Shaleia, like, you know, having relationships with people from every walk of life is like kind of like a union of that, right? Union in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorite things about just this community, is because like there's people all over the world that I get to talk to. Like I'm, you know, I don't normally talk to people from France and in South Africa. You know, it's really cool to get that perspective and, you know, like build a community without borders. It's one of my favorite things. Yeah.
You know, one of the things since being a part of this community, I've noticed, like, even when I'm out, like, wherever I am, I see, like, the God in people, like, their divinity. Like, even if somebody does something bad or something, I'm like, you know, they're still, like, part of God. Like, God is still in them. And that's one thing I didn't see before. Because I think it's kind of easier to judge people, like the bias thing like Granville was talking about, and kind of have this idea that like, hey, I'm better than you, or you're lower than me, kind of thoughts and disbeliefs and attitudes that a lot of people have. So I've even changed my own perspective in that sense.
Cool. How are you guys feeling? I feel like we have reached a culmination point for today's conversation. Is anybody else feeling that way? Cool. So I'm going to say thank you to everybody for joining us, and to the people that have been following us on our live conversation. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. Please feel free to like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel. You will find all our previous conversations. Also, please feel free to contribute anything that you have in relation to our topics that you feel can be expanded on. And we will see you next week. So thank you, everybody.